The Galactic Council's newest members sat in the pristine white chamber, their various forms creating an odd collection of shapes around the circular table. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and cast a dismissive glance at the human representative across from him. The humans had been part of the council for barely 3 standard cycles, yet they acted as if they belonged among the ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The human proposal is completely absurd, Kethvar announced, his voice carrying the musical chime that marked his species' communication. Night reconnaissance missions are suicide. No species can function effectively in complete darkness without technological assistance. The human ambassador, a middle-aged woman named Sarah Chun, remained perfectly still in her simple gray uniform. Her dark eyes reflected the chamber's artificial lighting as she listened to the debate swirling around her. The other council members nodded in agreement with Kethvar's assessment. The Thoraxian representative, resembling a massive insect with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles in approval. The jellyfish-like Aquarians pulsed their bioluminescent patterns in what humans had learned was their version of applause. Humans have barely mastered interstellar travel, added Counselor Vextra, the Thoraxian military advisor. Her voice buzzed through the translation matrix. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They cannot possibly succeed where our advanced night vision equipment has failed. Sarah finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. Counselor Vextra, with respect, our proposal doesn't rely on technology. We're suggesting human personnel for the mission because we have natural capabilities that might prove useful. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as alien laughter. The Zephyrians' chiming became sharper and more rapid. The Aquarians flashed bright patterns of amusement. Even a normally stoic crystalline collective's representative seemed to shimmer with mirth. Natural capabilities? Kethvar's voice reached a pitch that made the translation devices struggle. Human vision is notoriously poor. Your species evolved on a single planet with a single star. You have no adaptations for deep space darkness. Your eyes are designed for daylight hunting on grassy plains. Sarah waited for the laughter to die down before responding. That's where you're wrong, Counselor Kethvar. Humans are actually one of the few species that retained significant night vision capabilities. We were persistence hunters, yes, but we also hunted at dawn and dusk. We tracked prey through dense forests and caves. Our ancestors survived ice ages by adapting to long periods of darkness. The Thoraxian clicked dismissively. Even if that were true, which our biological scans suggest it isn't, the mission parameters are impossible. The Shadowlands of Kepler, 442c experience complete darkness for 18 standard hours per cycle. The terrain is treacherous. The indigenous predators can see incomplete infrared. Our best night vision technology failed there 3 times. The resistance base hidden in those mountains has been supplying weapons to rebel factions across 3 systems, added the Aquarian representative, her translation coming through as a melodic singing. Every attempt to locate and destroy it has failed. We've lost 2 full reconnaissance teams. Sarah leaned forward slightly, which is exactly why you need us. Your technology creates signatures that the base's sensors can detect. Your troops carry power sources, emit heat signatures, and rely on equipment that can malfunction or be detected. Humans can go in with minimal gear and rely on abilities that your enemies won't expect or understand. Kethvar's crystalline features somehow manage to convey profound skepticism. And what exactly makes you think humans can see in conditions where our advanced equipment fails? Because, Sarah said quietly, we evolved as predators who hunted in the dark. Our eyes collect and process available light in ways that most galactic species never developed. We can see in starlight, in the faint glow of distant nebulae, in conditions you would consider complete darkness. The chamber fell silent. The concept seemed to genuinely puzzle the assembled aliens. Their home worlds had multiple suns, or they lived underwater where light behaved differently, or they had evolved in environments where bioluminescence was common. The idea of a species that could function in near-total darkness without technological aid was foreign to their understanding. Proveit vextra base de suggendi. If humans possess these alleged abilities, demonstrate them here and now. Sarah smiled slightly. Very well, Computer, reduce lighting to 5% and disable all artificial enhancement systems. The chamber plunged into what the alien representatives perceived as complete darkness. Emergency lighting protocols tried to activate, but were overridden by Sarah's command codes. In the pitch black, sounds of confusion filled the air. The Zephyrians' breathing apparatus created nervous whistles. The Thoraxians' mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. The Aquarians' bioluminescence flared as a defensive response. Sarah's voice came clearly through the darkness, calm and precise. Counselor Kethvar, you've just reached for your emergency communicator with your left appendage. Counselor Vextra, your compound eyes are rotating frantically, trying to gather light that isn't there. Representative Fluxera of the Aquarians, your chromatophores are cycling through distress patterns. How are you? Kethvar began. Because I can see you, Sarah said simply. Not perfectly, but well enough. I can make out your basic shapes, your movements, your gestures. To me, this isn't complete darkness. It's just dim. The lights gradually returned to normal, revealing the alien representatives in various states of distress and confusion. Their technological aids were recalibrating. Their biological systems were recovering from what they perceived as temporary blindness. Impossible, whispered the Crystalline Collective's representative, whose voice sounded like wind through mineral formations. Our sensors indicate no artificial enhancement, no hidden technology. Sarah remained seated calmly. It's not impossible. It's just evolution. Humans spent hundreds of thousands of years hunting and surviving in conditions much darker than this. We learned to see with minimal light because our survival depended on it. The room remained silent as the implications sank in. For species that had always relied on either multiple suns or advanced technology to navigate darkness, the concept of biological night vision was revolutionary. Even if this is true, Kethvar said slowly, his musical voice subdued, the mission to Kepler 442c is extraordinarily dangerous. The Resistance fighters know every cave and ravine. They have weapons that can penetrate our best armor. They've set traps that have killed some of our finest warriors. Which is exactly why we need to approach this differently, Sarah replied. Your previous missions failed because they were loud, obvious, and relied on technology the enemy could detect and counter. We're proposing a different approach entirely. She activated a holographic display showing the mountainous terrain of Kepler 442c Shadowlands. 4 human operatives, minimal equipment, moving through the darkness like our ancestors moved through ancient forests. No power signatures to detect, no electronic emissions to track. Just humans using the abilities that evolution gave us. The Thoraxians' compound eyes focused intently on the display. And if you're captured? If you fail? Then, we fail quietly, Sarah said. But if we succeed, we prove that sometimes the old ways are better than the new ones. Sometimes what you call primitive is actually perfectly adapted for the task at hand. The debate continued for several more hours. But something had fundamentally changed in the chamber. The casual dismissal of human capabilities was gone, replaced by a grudging curiosity. For the first time, the alien representatives were seeing humans not as primitive newcomers, but as a species with unique adaptations that might prove valuable. As the session finally adjourned, Kethvar approached Sarah privately. Your demonstration was unexpected, he admitted, but night vision alone will not guarantee success on Kepler 442c. Are your people truly prepared for what they'll face in those mountains? Sarah met his crystalline gaze steadily. Counselor, my species survived ice ages, meteor impacts, volcanic winters, and countless wars using nothing but our wits and our natural abilities. A few rebels hiding in dark caves don't frighten us nearly as much as they should. The crystalline beings seem to consider this. Perhaps we have underestimated human capabilities. The mission parameters will be transmitted to your ship within the standard day cycle. Choose your operatives carefully, Ambassador Chun. The galaxy will be watching. As Sarah left the council chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. The real test was yet to come, but at least now humanity had a chance to prove that evolution sometimes created abilities that advanced technology couldn't replicate. In the darkness of space, being able to hunt by starlight might just be the advantage they needed. The transport ship Terran Dawn drifted silently through space toward Kepler 442c, its hull reflecting the distant starlight like a metal shadow. Inside the cramped briefing room, for humans sat around a metal table studying tactical displays and terrain maps. The ship's artificial lighting had been dimmed to help their eyes adjust for the mission ahead. Marcus Rodriguez checked his gear for the third time, his weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency over each piece of equipment. At 42, he was the oldest member of the team and had spent 12 years in Earth's military before joining the Galactic Defense Force. His dark eyes studied the holographic terrain display with the intensity of someone who had learned that details meant the difference between coming home and becoming a casualty. 3 previous alien teams, he said quietly, his voice carrying a slight accent from his childhood in the mountains of Peru. All failed. 2 teams never made it back at all. Across from him, Lieutenant Sarah Kim nodded as she adjusted her night vision headset. At 28, she was a reconnaissance specialist who had grown up hunting with her grandfather in the dense forests of Korea. Her small frame was deceptive. She could move through woodland terrain without making a sound, and had once tracked a wounded bear for 6 hours through complete darkness. The Zephyrian team got wiped out at the eastern approach, she said, pointing to a ravine on the display. Their crystalline biology made them glow slightly in infrared. The resistance fighters picked them off one by one. David Thompson, the team's explosives expert, looked up from his equipment check. The tall, lean man from the Canadian wilderness had been Sarah's suggestion for the mission. His pale blue eyes seemed to capture and reflect even the faintest light, and his knowledge of mountain terrain was legendary among human forces. The Thoraxian team made it further, he added, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had spent years alone in the wild. But their compound eyes couldn't adjust to the specific light conditions on Kepler 442c. They walked straight into an ambush in what they thought was total darkness. The 4th team member, Elena Vasquez, was studying atmospheric readings on her personal tablet. The atmospheric specialist from Earth's deep cave rescue teams had volunteered for the mission specifically because of her experience navigating underground in complete darkness. Her expertise in reading air currents and underground geology would be crucial for finding hidden entrances to the resistance base. The atmospheric composition is actually in our favor, she said, looking up from her readings. Kepler 442c has a slightly thicker atmosphere than Earth, which means sound carries differently. We'll be able to hear them before they hear us, especially if we move carefully. Marcus activated a detailed scan of their target area. The Shadowlands stretch for roughly 800 kilometers, but intelligence suggests the base is somewhere in this central mountain range. He highlighted a cluster of peaks that rose like jagged teeth from the planetary surface. The challenge is that there are hundreds of caves and ravines where they could be hiding. That's actually good news, Sarah said, adjusting her gear pack. Caves and ravines are environments where human night vision really excels. Our eyes evolved to track movement in complex terrain with limited light sources. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Human team, this is Captain Mordek. We're approaching the orbital insertion point. Prepare for final briefing. Captain Mordek was a Vorthan, one of the few alien species that had shown genuine respect for human capabilities. His people were traders and explorers who valued practical skills over advanced technology. When he entered the briefing room, his 4 arms moved in a gesture of respect that humans had learned to recognize. The Galactic Council is watching this mission very carefully, he said, his voice creating harmonic overtones that human ears found strangely musical. There are many who still believe you will fail. And what do you believe, Captain? Elena asked. Mordek's large, dark eyes seemed to study each team member individually. I have seen humans work in conditions that would kill most species. I have watched your people solve problems by thinking differently than the rest of us. If anyone can succeed where advanced technology has failed, it will be you. He activated a real-time display showing Kepler 442c surface. Current conditions are optimal for your mission. The planet is in its long night cycle, which will last another 43 standard hours. Surface temperature is holding steady at -15 degrees Celsius. No active weather systems in your target area. Marcus studied the display carefully. What about hostile forces? Any updates on resistance activity? Intelligence reports suggest they've become more active since the last failed mission, Mordek replied. They seem confident that their mountain stronghold is unassailable. Our listening posts have intercepted communications suggesting they believe they're invisible to Council forces. That confidence might work in our favor, David said thoughtfully. Overconfident enemies make mistakes. The captain nodded. Your insertion point is here. He indicated a valley approximately 50 kilometers from the suspected base location. You'll have to traverse this terrain on foot. No technology that might give away your position. Sarah looked at the topographical display with satisfaction. This is perfect hunting ground for humans. Rocky terrain, multiple sight lines, plenty of natural cover. Our ancestors would have felt right at home here. Remember, Captain Mordek said seriously, this isn't just about completing the mission. You're proving that humans deserve respect as equals in the Galactic Council. There are species that still see your people as primitive newcomers who got lucky with faster-than-light travel. Elena grinned. Then, we'll just have to show them that sometimes primitive is exactly what the situation calls for. The team spent the next hour making final preparations. They double-checked their minimal equipment load, basic weapons, emergency rations, first aid supplies, and communication gear. No night vision technology, no artificial light sources, no electronic devices that might create detectable signatures. Strange feeling, David commented as he secured his pack. Going into combat with less technology than our ancestors used 1,000 years ago. Not less technology, Marcus corrected. Different technology. We're using the most advanced biological sensors in the galaxy. Human eyes and ears that took millions of years to perfect. As they prepared for insertion, each team member went through their own personal rituals. Marcus closed his eyes and visualized the terrain they would face, drawing on decades of mountain warfare experience. Sarah practiced moving silently through the ship's corridors, her footsteps making no sound on the metal deck plates. David checked and rechecked his equipment placement, ensuring everything could be accessed by touch alone in complete darkness. Elena reviewed atmospheric data and cave formation patterns, prepared her mind to read the subtle signs that would guide them to their target. The insertion pod was a simple, dark capsule designed for stealth rather than comfort. As the team strapped themselves in, Captain Mordek made one final check of their equipment. No radio communication with the ship until mission completion or a critical emergency, he reminded them. You'll be completely on your own down there. We understand, Captain, Marcus replied. Silent running until we complete the objective or until extraction becomes necessary. The captain hesitated. There's something else. The Council has authorized lethal force if necessary, but they're hoping you can complete the mission without direct confrontation. They want to demonstrate that humans can succeed through stealth and skill rather than superior firepower. Sarah smiled grimly. Our ancestors hunted mammoth with wooden spears and persistence. A few rebels with energy weapons shouldn't be too much of a challenge. The insertion pod launched silently from the ship's belly, beginning its descent toward the dark surface of Kepler 442c. Inside the cramped capsule, the four humans sat in comfortable silence, each one mentally preparing for the task ahead. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, Elena monitored air pressure readings. Atmosphere is thickening as expected. Gravity is about 90% of Earth normal. Should feel natural once we're moving. Visual contact with surface, Sarah reported, her enhanced night vision already picking out details that the pod's instruments couldn't detect. I can see the mountain range. The terrain looks rougher than the satellite imagery suggested. Marcus checked his equipment one final time. Remember, we move like our ancestors moved. Silent, patient, and deadly when necessary. We're not just completing a mission. We're proving that evolution created the perfect reconnaissance tool, a human being who can see in the dark. The pod touched down in the designated valley with barely a whisper of sound. As the four humans stepped out onto the alien soil, they found themselves in what most galactic species would consider impenetrable darkness. To them, it was simply another hunting ground where their unique abilities would finally have a chance to shine. The surface of Kepler 442c felt alien beneath their feet, but not uncomfortably so. The rocky ground reminded Marcus of the high Andes where he had trained as a young soldier. while the thin air carried scents that were almost familiar: stone dust, mineral deposits, and something that might have been the alien equivalent of pine needles. "Sound check," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible even to her teammates standing just meters away. "Anyone else hearing that echo pattern?" Elena tilted her head, listening to the way their voices bounced off the surrounding rock formations. The acoustic properties are interesting. Sound carries further than it should, but also gets distorted. "We'll need to be even quieter than planned." David knelt and examined the ground with his fingers, reading the terrain like a book. "Soil composition is loose shale over bedrock. Good traction for us, but it'll make noise if we're not careful. I suggest we stick to the rock outcroppings where possible." They moved out in single file, with Sarah taking point and Marcus bringing up the rear. Their formation was loose, but coordinated, each person staying within sight of the others despite the darkness. To alien observers, they would have seemed to vanish completely into the black landscape. To each other, they were clearly visible as moving shadows against the lighter background of stone and sky. The first hour of movement went smoothly. They covered nearly 8 kilometers, moving through terrain that would have challenged most galactic species even in full daylight. Sarah navigated by reading the subtle variations in starlight reflected off different rock surfaces, while Elena used air currents to guide them away from unstable areas. "Contact," David whispered suddenly, freezing in place. The team dropped into defensive positions instantly, their movements so silent that even they had trouble tracking each other. Marcus slowly raised his hand and pointed toward a ridge approximately 200 meters ahead. Through the darkness, they could all see the faint infrared signatures of what appeared to be a patrol. "For individuals," Sarah breathed, her voice so quiet it was almost just shaped air, moving in standard sweep pattern. "They're using active night vision equipment." The alien patrol was indeed using technology to navigate the darkness, their enhanced vision devices creating small but detectable energy signatures. To the humans, watching from their position among the rocks, the patrol might as well have been carrying torches. The electronic devices glowed like beacons in the darkness. Elena studied the patrol's movement pattern. They're following a predetermined route, probably scanning for electronic signatures and heat sources, which we don't have, Marcus noted with satisfaction. "We're invisible to their sensors." They watched as the patrol moved along the ridge, their searchlights sweeping mechanically back and forth. The alien soldiers were clearly confident in their technology, moving with the casual efficiency of troops who believe themselves to be the only ones capable of operating in such conditions. David pointed toward a gap in the patrol route. "They're leaving the eastern slope unguarded for approximately 47 seconds each sweep. We can move through there." "Wait," Sarah held up her hand. "Something's not right. Look at how they're moving." The team observed more carefully. The patrol was indeed following a set pattern, but there was something deliberate about their positioning that suggested more than routine surveillance. "They're herding," Marcus realized. "This isn't a random patrol. They're trying to funnel something or someone toward a specific location." Elena felt the air currents change slightly and turned her head to listen. "There's another group moving parallel to us, about half a kilometer south. The patrol is designed to drive targets toward them." "Previous reconnaissance teams," David said grimly. "The aliens who survived long enough to be captured probably revealed their approach routes. The resistance has turned our insertion area into a trap." Sarah smiled in the darkness. "Good thing we're not approaching this like the previous teams did. Instead of avoiding the patrol or trying to sneak past it, the humans did something completely unexpected. They moved directly toward the alien soldiers, staying low and using the natural rock formations as cover. Their ability to see clearly in the darkness gave them an enormous advantage over enemies who were relying on electronic enhancement. They got within 50 meters of the patrol before Sarah held up her hand again. Now, they could hear the aliens talking to each other in low voices. The universal translators the humans carried picked up fragments of conversation. "No contacts on thermal. Electronic sweep negative. Maintaining pattern 7. They're bored," Elena observed quietly. "This is routine for them." Marcus studied the patrol's equipment and positioning. "Standard Galactic Defense Force gear, but modified. These aren't regular soldiers. They're resistance fighters using stolen equipment. The patrol continued their sweep, completely unaware that 4 humans were observing them from close range. To their electronic sensors, the area appeared empty of any life forms larger than the small scavengers that lived among the rocks. Moving to intercept the secondary team, Sarah signaled. They ghost-walked through the darkness, moving with the patience their ancestors had developed during countless hunts. Each step was carefully placed, each movement calculated to avoid creating any sound or disturbance that might alert their targets. The secondary patrol was positioned exactly where Elena's reading of the terrain had suggested it would be, in a narrow valley that served as a natural choke point. 6 alien soldiers with heavy weapons were waiting for prey to be driven into their killing field. "They've done this before," David observed as they studied the ambush position. "Multiple times, probably. Those are fighting positions that took time to prepare." The ambush site showed clear signs of previous use. Blast marks on the rocks, scattered equipment fragments, and what appeared to be memorial markers suggested that this location had been the end of the road for previous reconnaissance teams. Sarah felt a cold anger building as she realized they were looking at a carefully planned killing ground. The resistance hadn't just been defending themselves. They had been systematically hunting and destroying Council reconnaissance teams. "We need intelligence," Marcus decided. "We need to know how many more of these traps are out there, and we need to know the location of their main base." "Capture mission?" Elena asked. "Capture mission," he confirmed. "But we do this the human way." What happened next would have seemed impossible to most galactic species. The humans didn't use advanced technology or overwhelming firepower. Instead, they used techniques that predators had been perfecting for millions of years. They waited with the infinite patience of persistent hunters, studying their prey and learning their patterns. They identified the weakest member of the patrol, a soldier who kept checking his equipment and seemed nervous about the darkness around him. They observed the communication patterns between team members and identified the command structure. Then they moved. Sarah circled wide to the east, her footsteps silent on the rocky ground. David approached from the west, moving like a shadow among the stone formations. Elena positioned herself to block the most likely escape route, while Marcus prepared to take the patrol leader. The attack, when it came, was over in seconds. The nervous soldier simply vanished from his position without making a sound. His teammates didn't notice for almost a full minute, assuming he had moved to a different position. When they finally realized something was wrong and tried to investigate, they found that their communication systems were being jammed, not by electronic warfare, but by David's carefully placed explosive charges that had disabled their equipment without creating detectable energy signatures. In the confusion that followed, the remaining patrol members found themselves isolated and surrounded by enemies they couldn't see, couldn't hear, and couldn't track with any of their advanced technology. One by one, they were captured with efficiency that would have impressed their own military instructors. When the dust settled, the humans had 5 prisoners and a wealth of intelligence about resistance operations. More importantly, they had demonstrated something that would send shock waves through the galactic military community when the mission reports were filed. Humans could not only operate effectively in conditions where advanced technology failed, they could actually use those conditions to gain a significant tactical advantage over enemies who relied on that technology. As they prepared to move toward the main resistance base, Marcus looked back at the disabled patrol and allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn that evolution had created something more effective than any night vision device ever manufactured, a human being hunting in the dark. The capture-resistant soldiers were a mixed group of alien species, each representing different worlds that had grievances against the Galactic Council. Under gentle but persistent interrogation, they revealed information that shocked the human team. The resistance base wasn't just a weapons depot, it was a sophisticated command center coordinating rebellion activities across 12 star systems. They've been using the Shadowlands for almost 2 standard years, explained their primary prisoner, a crystalline being similar to the Zephyrians but with darker, more angular features. The Council's reconnaissance technology can't penetrate the unique mineral composition of these mountains. Our base is completely invisible to orbital scans. Elena studied the geological data they had extracted from the prisoner's equipment. The mountains contain veins of trinium-7, which interferes with most forms of electronic detection. That's why the previous teams failed. They were essentially flying blind. But we're not flying blind, Sarah pointed out. We don't need electronic detection when we can actually see what we're looking for. The prisoners had revealed the location of 3 different entrances to the underground complex, along with guard rotation schedules and security protocols. What they hadn't expected was that humans would be able to verify this information by direct observation rather than relying on technological scanning. David climbed to a high vantage point and spent 2 hours watching the mountainside through natural night vision. "I count 4 entrances, not 3, he reported when he returned. "There's a concealed access point that doesn't appear on their maps. Probably an emergency exit or a separate command facility. That suggests they don't completely trust all of their own people," Marcus observed. "The emergency exit is known only to senior leadership." They spent the rest of the night conducting detailed reconnaissance, moving through the mountain terrain with an ease that would have astounded their alien captives. While other galactic species would have needed heavy equipment and technological assistance to navigate the treacherous slopes and hidden ravines, the humans moved with the confidence of mountaineers who had learned their skills in Earth's most challenging environments. "The main entrance is heavily defended," Sarah reported after completing a circuit of the base perimeter. "I count at least 20 soldiers with heavy weapons. Multiple overlapping fields of fire, sensor arrays, the works. The secondary entrances are less defended, but have internal security systems that would be triggered by any electronic device," Elena added. "Motion sensors, heat detectors, pressure plates. Very sophisticated. But the emergency exit," David said with satisfaction, "is almost unguarded. 2 sentries with basic equipment, and they're relying entirely on the assumption that no one can find it in the dark." Marcus gathered the team around a detailed terrain map they had constructed through direct observation. "Here's what we know. The base extends deep into the mountain, probably multiple levels. The Resistance has been using it to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. If we can disable their command and control center, we effectively blind their entire network. The question is whether we try to complete the mission through stealth or whether we call for backup," Elena said. Sarah shook her head. "If we call for backup, we're admitting that humans can't complete the mission alone. We're back to being junior partners in the Council instead of proving that we deserve respect as equals. Plus," David added, "backup would mean orbital bombardment or a large-scale assault. The intelligence value of this base would be lost, and we drive the Resistance deeper underground." Marcus studied the map for a long moment. "We go with the original plan. Stealth insertion, gather intelligence, disable their command center, and extract with proof of human capabilities. What they attempted next would have been considered suicidal by conventional galactic military standards. For humans, operating without technological support in hostile territory, planning to infiltrate a heavily defended command center that had resisted all previous attempts at discovery. They approached the emergency exit just before dawn, moving through terrain that would have challenged mountain goats. The 2 sentries were exactly where the reconnaissance had indicated, positioned to watch the concealed entrance, but clearly not expecting any actual threats. "They're using standard night vision equipment," Sarah observed after studying the guards for several minutes. "Good quality, but it creates a narrow field of view and reduces peripheral vision." The guards were indeed relying heavily on their electronic enhancement, scanning methodically, but missing the subtle signs that would have alerted biological senses to approaching danger. They never saw the humans positioning themselves among the rocks, never heard the carefully controlled breathing or the whisper-soft movement of equipment. The takedown was textbook perfect. Both guards were unconscious before they realized they were under attack. Elena's knowledge of alien physiology allowed her to apply pressure points that worked across multiple species, while David's technical skills disabled their communication equipment without triggering any automatic alarms. "Internal security is just as sophisticated as reported," Marcus noted as they examined the entrance. "Motion detectors, thermal sensors, and something that looks like an atmospheric analyzer, all of which are designed to detect technology and energy signatures," Elena pointed out. "What happens if we just walk past them?" It was such a simple idea that it seemed almost ridiculous. The security systems were designed to detect intrusion by technologically equipped forces. They weren't calibrated to notice for humans moving carefully and quietly through the tunnels. The infiltration that followed would be studied in military academies for decades to come. The humans moved through the underground complex like ghosts, avoiding patrols through superior night vision and navigation skills rather than electronic countermeasures. They mapped the facility by observation and memory rather than digital recording. They gathered intelligence by listening and watching rather than hacking into computer systems. Command Center is 3 levels down, Sarah reported after completing a circuit of the upper levels. I count approximately 40 personnel total in the facility, with about 12 in the command center at any given time. Communications array is on the 2nd level, David added. If we disable that first, they can't call for backup or warn their other installations. Elena had been studying the facility's construction and airflow patterns. The entire complex is powered by a geothermal tap, about 5 levels down. If we can access that, we can disable the whole facility without destroying the intelligence databases. Marcus felt a deep satisfaction as the plan came together. Disable communications first, then power, then secure the command center. We extract with their intelligence files and proof that the resistance network has been effectively decapitated. And we do it all without firing a shot if possible, Sarah added. Maximum demonstration of human capabilities with minimum collateral damage. As they prepared to move deeper into the complex, each team member understood that they were engaged in something larger than a military mission. They were proving that biological evolution could create capabilities that advanced technology couldn't replicate or replace. The resistance fighters in the command center continued their work, completely unaware that 4 humans were moving through their facility with the silent efficiency of predators who had evolved to hunt in the dark. Their sophisticated sensors detected nothing. Their advanced surveillance systems registered no intrusion. But in the shadows just beyond the range of their artificial lighting, for humans moved with the patience and skill of persistence hunters, closing in on prey that had no idea it was being stalked. The communications array fell silent at exactly 0347 local time. David's expertise with explosives had allowed him to disable the entire system with surgical precision, creating what appeared to be a cascading technical failure rather than sabotage. The resistance technicians would spend hours trying to diagnose and repair systems that had been subtly damaged beyond quick repair. 2 levels below, Elena was approaching the geothermal power tap with the careful attention of someone who understood that one wrong move could either electrocute her or trigger a catastrophic system failure. The alien technology was sophisticated but followed logical engineering principles that translated across species boundaries. Power systems are more vulnerable than expected, she whispered into her throat mic. I can create a controlled shutdown that will look like equipment failure rather than sabotage. They'll have backup power, but it'll be limited and won't support their heavy security systems. Meanwhile, Sarah and Marcus had positioned themselves outside the command center, observing the facility's leadership through careful reconnaissance. What they saw would fundamentally change how the Galactic Council understood the scope of the resistance threat. Command Center contains representatives from at least 8 different species, Sarah reported quietly. This isn't just a local rebel group. This is a coordinated multi-system conspiracy. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, they could see alien beings working at sophisticated control stations, coordinating activities across vast distances. Star charts showed planned attacks on Council installations, supply convoys, and diplomatic facilities across 12 different systems. Look at this, Marcus breathed as he studied one particular display. They're planning simultaneous attacks on the Council's 3 primary fleet anchorages. If they succeed, they could cripple our ability to maintain order in this entire sector. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. The resistance wasn't just fighting for independence from the Council. They were planning to overthrow the established galactic order entirely. The intelligence databases contained detailed files on Council military capabilities, diplomatic communications, and strategic weaknesses. We need those files, Sarah said. This intelligence could prevent a galactic-scale war. Elena's voice came through their comm units. Power shut down in 30 seconds. Backup systems will activate automatically, but they'll be running at about 40% capacity. The lights throughout the complex dimmed as the main power systems cycled offline. Emergency lighting activated, but The facility was now operating on reserve power that couldn't support the energy-hungry security systems that had made previous infiltrations impossible. Security sensors are down across the facility, David reported from his position near the communications array. They're running diagnostics and trying to restart their primary systems. In the command center, alien beings moved with increasing urgency as they realized their facility was experiencing multiple system failures simultaneously. The coincidence seemed suspicious, but their sensors showed no signs of external attack or infiltration. Now, Marcus said, the assault on the command center was swift and efficient. The humans moved through the facility's corridors like shadows, their natural night vision giving them a crucial advantage in the dimmed emergency lighting. The resistance fighters, suddenly partially blind and operating on reduced power, found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't detect until it was far too late. Sarah entered through the main access corridor, moving with the silent precision of a predator. Elena approached from the maintenance tunnels, her knowledge of the facility's layout allowing her to bypass the remaining security systems. David provided overwatch from the communications level, ready to prevent any calls for help that might slip through their sabotage. Marcus came through the emergency access, moving with the calm efficiency of someone who had conducted dozens of similar operations in the mountains of Earth. The resistance leaders never saw them coming. One moment, they were working frantically to restore their systems. The next moment, they were facing 4 humans who had appeared out of the darkness like legends from a primitive world's mythology. "Nobody moves," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who was completely confident in his position. "Keep your hands visible and step away from the control stations." The alien beings froze, their various sensory organs struggling to process what had just happened. According to their understanding of galactic military capabilities, it should have been impossible for anyone to penetrate their facility undetected. "Ow," asked the facility commander, a large insectoid being whose compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting. "Our sensors detected no intrusion, no energy signatures, no technological traces." Sarah smiled grimly. "That's because we didn't use any technology you could detect. We used something much older and more reliable." As the humans secured the command center, Elena began downloading critical intelligence from the facility's databases. The information they were extracting would expose the full scope of the resistance network and prevent coordinated attacks across multiple star systems. "This data shows planned attacks on civilian targets," Elena reported, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They're not just fighting the Council's military forces. They're planning to target refugee camps and medical facilities." The scope of the planned atrocities was staggering. The resistance had moved far beyond legitimate grievances against Council policies and into the realm of systematic terrorism designed to destabilize galactic civilization. "Download everything," Marcus ordered. "The Council needs to see the full extent of this conspiracy." David's voice came through their comm units. "We've got company approaching. I count 3 fast attack vehicles about 10 kilometers out. Someone must have gotten a message through before we shut down communications." "Extraction time," Sarah announced. "We've got what we came for." The withdrawal from the facility was as efficient as the infiltration had been. The humans moved through the complex with the same silent precision, leaving behind a command center full of shocked resistance leaders and databases that had been systematically compromised. As they made their way back to the surface through the emergency exit, each team member understood that they had accomplished something that would fundamentally change humanity's position in galactic society. They had not only completed an impossible mission, they had done it using biological capabilities that no amount of technology could replicate. "Transport ship, this is Alpha Team." Marcus spoke into his long-range communicator as they reached the surface. "Mission accomplished. Requesting immediate extraction." Captain Mordek's voice came through clearly. "Alpha Team, this is Terran Dawn. We're detecting multiple energy signatures approaching your position. Can you reach the original extraction point?" "Negative," Sarah replied, studying the approaching vehicles through her natural night vision. "We'll need pickup at the secondary site." The extraction was a running battle fought in the pre-dawn darkness of an alien world. The humans moved through the mountainous terrain with the sure-footed confidence of persistence hunters, while their resistance pursuers struggled to track targets who seemed to vanish and reappear like ghosts in shadows. By the time the Terran Dawn arrived for pickup, the pursuing vehicles had lost contact with their quarry entirely. The humans had simply faded into the landscape like mist, appearing at the extraction point exactly on schedule. As their transport ship broke atmosphere and headed for the jump point, the four humans sat in the briefing room reviewing the intelligence they had gathered. The scope of the Resistance conspiracy was even larger than they had initially realized. 12 star systems, Elena said, studying the downloaded files. Coordinated attacks planned across 57 different targets. If this had succeeded, it would have thrown the entire galactic community into chaos. And we stopped at using nothing more sophisticated than good night vision and careful observation, David added with satisfaction. Sarah activated the ship's long-range communications array. Galactic Council, this is Alpha Team. Mission accomplished with full intelligence recovery. The Resistance command structure has been neutralized. Ambassador Chen's voice came through the comm system clearly, but there was something different in her tone. Alpha Team, outstanding work. The Council is eager to review your mission reports. Any word on how our performance is being received? Marcus asked. There was a brief pause. Let's just say that several Council members have suddenly become very interested in establishing closer military cooperation with human forces. As the Terran Dawn entered hyperspace for the journey home, the four humans allowed themselves to relax for the first time in days. They had proven that biological evolution could create capabilities that advanced technology couldn't match or replicate. More importantly, they had demonstrated that humans deserved respect as equals in the galactic community, not as primitive newcomers who had gotten lucky with faster-than-light travel, but as a species whose unique adaptations could contribute significantly to galactic security. The mission reports that would be filed upon their return would send shock waves through military establishments across dozens of star systems. Humans had accomplished in one night what the combined technological might of the Galactic Council had failed to achieve in 2 years. As Marcus looked out at the stars streaming past in hyperspace, he allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most advanced technology in the universe was a human being who could see in the dark.